we're not getting the value out of it. We're getting squeezed. And if you look at the AI spend, we know the AI spend has been huge. This is coming from like McKinsey and Boston Consulting and everybody in the space is saying, hey, huge AI spend, less than 5, maybe 6% are getting any productivity gain.
We're very excited to have Dr. Howard Dover join us today. Dr. Howard leads the Center for Professional Sales at the University of Texas at Dallas, and he spent his career at the intersection of sales science and practice, studying how selling organizations adapt or fail to adapt as technology reshapes the profession. His most recent work, the Sales Leader Survey, draws on more than 100 interviews with senior sales leaders across, Fortune 500 to, fast-growing startups in technology, financial services, consumer goods, life sciences, and other services, and the entire spectrum of company building. But what makes, their findings so relevant to today's conversation is the argument under them, like the pressure that sales leaders name that they face when it comes to scaling is very interesting. The answers surprised me, and I'm sure that everyone who joins this session would get really unique insights to take away. So Dr. Howard is here to unpack what it means for winning sales teams and leaders in particular to scale today. So Dr. Howard, you're welcome.
Thank you. I as you know, a year ago, we reached out to you about this challenge or opportunity that we do what we call a business acumen project, where our students go out and interview about 600 to 700 executives each semester, and then we try to synthesize that data into a consumable format. And so we were thrilled to run into Insight 7 to realize that they had broke the code on doing more than 50 interviews. And so and we keep on pushing their team to go even bigger and bigger, because we always find the envelope. But so this has given us the opportunity to take large amounts of the data that we're getting and push it down into what we call a pulse report, which is the ability to take S&B, and in this case, sales leadership, and say, what can we learn? And because the interviews are open format, they're long form qualitative research, they're not surveys. So we're not giving a preset concept. We're saying, hey, what's on your mind? What has really kind of dragged you down over the last few years? What's your current challenge? What's your current opportunities? What are your future challenges and future opportunities? And that's really where we take a huge cut for the pulse. We look at all the questions, all the responses, but we're really looking at what are leaders thinking about right now, positive, where are they seeing opportunities, where are they seeing threats? And so that's where this report comes from. So we do have an executive summary available. The current report in raw form is between 35 and 52 pages. So we're bringing that down into a consumable format for sales leaders, hopefully in late Q3. So
yeah, I was going to point that out, that the report itself is not out. So everyone who's listening is getting exclusive, first-hand insights to, the learnings from that research. But why don't we dive in and start to unpack what that report is going to have? So I think the first thing would be helping us understand, what broke in the old scaling playbook. Was it the tactics, or is it the assumption that, we have as, sales leaders, that more inputs produce more output? Like, what exactly has changed?
Well, I think one of the key findings, there's a lot of key findings related to that question. And I think the biggest thing is that scaling and tactics are both off. So you've got to challenge that. The biggest thing, I think the finding is coming out that's related to that question is the talent gap. So just hiring more people with the same talent gap isn't going to improve performance. So this idea that everybody, by the way, this is across SMB, and this is like a 2 to 3 year trend. The talent gap just gets different frameworks on it. But in sales, for sure, it came out. It's this talent reality, and it's really two-dimensional. The biggest one is AI, lack of AI literacy. And then the other one is that productivity, old playbooks and old go-to-market strategies just don't resonate as strongly today as they did just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that. Well, where do you think sales leaders are misdiagnosing why their team isn't performing today? Where are we missing the diagnosis of what exactly is wrong today?
Well, I think the challenge that people are running into is the same old problem. I wrote a book about it a few years ago called The Sales Innovation Paradox. I'm not saying that to push the book. I just don't think we're past that problem, which is that given the advent of AI, we think that adding a tool is going to solve the problem. And what we're getting from the data is the AI is both a frustration and an opportunity. So and so adding AI is just going to amplify existing strengths or amplify existing weaknesses. So if you have the capabilities within your organization to deploy AI, that means you're winning that talent gap battle. Then you throw AI into that space and you're actually seeing really amazing results. But yet a vast majority, what they're finding is that when they apply AI, especially at the top of the funnel AI execution is really reducing efficacy and causing behavioral change. This isn't coming from the data. This is coming from other data that I've looked at and keynotes I've done, that the efficacy of outbound has dropped off a lot over the last 18 to 2 years. But then I think we can move into the space that's kind of sad, is that we really do have visibility now on, once again, coming outside the data and into a research report and book chapter that I just wrote with some co-authors. We've had all the interviews and all these calls have been captured with conversation intelligence for a long time. We now have the ability to have complete visibility on that. Mm-hmm. And we also have AI tools that can make sense of that. And so the challenge, once again, if we want to come back to the talent problem, right? This talent gap. If I dare say that I'm speaking outside the data, I'm analyzing. When we go to that space, we have what I would call a management talent gap, that managers and executives have never had this degree of visibility before. Mm. They've never had the ability to say, let me teach you a skill, and then measure whether that skill is improving or decaying. And we have complete visibility now for that. But if you never grew up with that, you never trained for that, so now we have a brand new way of going to market that we can be extremely agile to all of the movement that's definitely occurring in the marketplace with all the results we're hearing, the uncertainty, the changing environment, supply chain disruptions, all these things kind of come out in the S&B reports and in the sales reports. So what you've got is a shifting landscape of the voice of the customer. And yet we're sitting in a technological moment in which we can adjust individual skill and capacity in real time. But I don't know that we have leaders and enablement people that this is new. So now we have a skill gap again. coming back to the skill gap problem. So we have skill gap at the sales level, we have skill gap at the managerial and the enablement level as well.
That's very, very interesting. And it's super relevant to some of the things that we're working on, just trying to give teams visibility into what's going on in those conversations. But how do you think, what do you see as the impact that is having for this team? So the visibility is there. Some teams are already adopting these tools. They have the data, the talent is not there, or the skill is not there at the managerial level. What's the impact of that today?
Well, I think the impact, what the report kind of shows is that because you struggle with the talent, then when you buy the tool, you struggle with getting lift from the purchase. In analyzing it, and the reason the report isn't out is because the analysis has kind of jumped a little ahead of the data. So we need to go back and make sure we're reporting the data and separating the analysis, the executive summary. The challenge is that companies are really over-rotating on purchasing the technology first versus building the capability to harness the technology first. So I would say it's a split model, right? Those companies who have developed the capability are going to see huge impact. And just give you a case in point, Odin. You've been helping us for about 1.5 years, for a good full year, but we've been kind of playing with what you do for about 1.5 years. And the students that we have put into this business acumen project, that a lot of things that their capabilities are expanded in AI use, in pipeline development, and in articulating what AI is giving them in a way that is meaningful and builds trust. Those students are outperforming their peers at phenomenal levels.
Wow.
Phenomenal levels. The number one person in Gartner right now in the early stage is from our program.
Wow.
She went through the treatment a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. Some of the top performers in some other companies are students. They're outperforming their peers in dramatic fashion. And part of it is because their capability to interact with AI is enhanced. It isn't just that we're throwing the tool at them. I did the same thing 6-7 years ago. I threw AI tools at my students early in the cycle. We're not talking about the current generative AI. We're talking about AI has been around for a while. And we discovered very early that the student lacked capability. And so we've been working, this business acumen project is a 3-year project to enhance the business acumen and curiosity of a person who's going to interact with the customer and the AI tool. And they need to be enhanced. Their capabilities need to be built. And if we build those capabilities, we get exponential performance differentials, as we would expect we could. Now, if your people are not enhanced in their acumen and their curiosity, then they come across as distributing AI slop. Right? They're just saying stuff that AI told them to say. And maybe even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right as the generative AI was coming out, you could differentiate yourself by using AI slop. Now everybody's seeing the AI slop and calling it AI slop. So, right, it's and even LinkedIn is starting their battle against AI slop. So, so the challenge is it's no longer the differentiator, because we haven't built the capability in the human to harness. And I think when we look at that, it's multidimensional. I know that you guys have moved a product shift more into that enhancing of the manager and the producer, but really down at the individual contributor, enhancing their capabilities to take the insights from the intelligence they're being offered. And this is, I think the skill sets are shifting. Gartner just came out in their CSO event with new competencies that top performers have. And the greatest one isn't grit.
Mm.
It's things like tactical flexibility. It's AI literacy. It's it's the ability to internalize information and then project how that will impact the customer's business, not today, but into the future. That requires more than just coming up with some AI slop and saying it.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. The skills required to thrive in today's world are evolving. So as you were talking about the competencies, a question came to my mind around, like, based on the research, are there particular stages of the sales cycle where you believe these talent gaps are more pronounced today, or is this just like on the average across the entire cycle?
Well, I think the talent gap exhibits itself in multiple spots, right? So when we talk about the talent gap, for a long time, I took this from Jason Jordan years ago. I think this was even before COVID. Jason Jordan wrote a great book called Cracking the Sales Management Code. And he was at a keynote and he said, the issue is not, do we have the technology to inform us on what to do? He said, the technology leapfrogged us a long time ago. It's that we haven't built once again, coming back to that capability challenge, we haven't built the human capacity to harness the information we're given. And he said that before COVID. So I don't think that's changed a whole lot. I think it's exacerbated.
Mm.
So we were going through the ZERP years up until 22, 23, where we were able to just scale and use the playbook, press the more button, and really, even though we had the equivalent of spam machine guns that we could pray and spray everywhere, now we have AI slop machine guns. And the early move was more again. So if we go into the years of 23, 24, 25, what we saw was, oh, this could allow us to personalize at scale and flood the market with more content and more outbound. And what happened is the efficacy of all that effort just dropped drastically in 24, 25, and into 26. So you've got this lack of efficacy, the increase in cost that was caused by the behavior shift that occurred within the marketplace. But that's been going on for over a decade. So I don't think it's new. I think it's just that the actors have changed and the mechanisms have changed. At the end of the day, you talk to a customer at the right time with the right message, and you do so in a way that you are distinctly human, it's going to resonate. But also, if you don't even have to be human if you're hitting it perfectly, because more and more buyers are deploying bots too. So that's not in the research, that's in other research people are doing. So
yeah. So talking more about like how the old playbook worked and what's happening today. So in the old playbook, if you wanted to scale your sales team, the ideal fashion is just to add more reps linearly. But your research shows that that's not the bottleneck today. That's not the real constraint. What is the constraint today limiting scale?
I think so. I see two organizations, because the other advantage I have besides doing the survey is we have a sales center. A lot of different companies contact us. And for a long time, we still had the old school playbook coming in with, we need to hire a lot of people and not a lot of thought. We're beginning to see the transformation now around, we need RevOps so we can see what's going on. We need go-to-market architecture, AI agent operators. So we need people who are enablement and RevOps and tech. And so there's this emerging space. called the go-to-market engineer. But it's really this higher end enablement. Enablement can be now agile instead of just on ramp. And so when you begin to deploy all of that, you start hearing companies who say, I need to hire support structure that's AI native, and then I need SDRs and AEs that have new skills. And this is what Gartner's finding in their research as well, is that the competencies of the top performers now are things like, I'm really AI native. I really listen to my customer. I really can conceptualize what they're trying to tell me. And I can harness my skills, and I can think critically, and I can think with agility and strategy. So that's kind of tough, by the way. That doesn't, if you were to describe the B2B space and say, are these the attributes we would anticipate in the average? I think we would say, no, we're not experiencing that. But so that's really I think the new playbook is get the systems down. Once again, coming back to this, not trying to beat this dead. You build the capabilities based off the technology. It's kind of an AI first go-to-market strategy. And then you put in the humans in the loop where humans need to be in the loop, but those humans have to be very different. They're not pit bulls, they're not type A personalities per se. They're really highly capable of harnessing what the AI infrastructure and the architects have built for them. And I saw early signs of this in Microsoft, definitely before COVID when I wrote the book, because Microsoft had created at scale a 1 million lead next recommended action system. And so the system would determine what the customer needed. And then if the human needed to be in the loop, it would notify the human of the next step and stack rank where the greatest use of the human was. And that was before generative AI came out. So I don't think this is new. I do think it is best in class, world class companies who think this way. They don't lose people because they go to market in ways that their people are productive and hitting their number. We have some friends over at Spectrum Enterprise that are running a new BDR team here in Dallas. And Mark Scott's over there, and Sean Sebastian and some other people. And they're harnessing their abilities to improve performance. They dovetail perfectly with our business acumen. And so they've been able to generate, everybody's hitting quota. And not only hit, they're exceeding quota over there, because they're modernizing their go-to-market strategy. And Odun, they're not hiring hundreds because they've figured out to do it. So they're not scaling it. Their scale is, maybe we'll add one more team of 5 to 10 this year, because their systems are already scaled. And so I think that's what we're looking at, is the new scale will be, I have capability, I have an AI first go-to-market strategy, I prove its concept and work, and then I scale. But once again, we're not seeing that broadly, because if we were, we wouldn't see the talent gap and AI fear showing up in the survey like we're seeing in the interviews. Everybody's expressing they can't find the talent, and that AI is a threat, not an opportunity for them.
So there are two kind of themes that I'm getting from a lot of things you've said. One is around the capabilities, and then the other bit is like the talent, the training. And there are people on this call who want to action a lot of the insights that you're sharing. We internally have built a lot of tools to accelerate our go-to-market. Like we had a mini CRM, we have all kinds of tools. But I don't think we're getting a lot of value from those tools. Some tools we'll build and then we're doing nothing with them at the end of the day. Is there a way you've seen, some sales leaders successfully build out those capabilities and then get them adopted? Like, is there like a more of like a journey or ideal step-by-step, approach to getting success out of building out those capabilities? Maybe you could share some examples. That'll be helpful.
Yeah, I think our one of the fundamental challenges there, and once again, we're coming from this idea that I may make a lot of enemies with saying this, but I think there are world-class sales organizations, and I think there are people who are trying to become world-class sales organizations. And then there is the vast majority of the marketplace that is just trying to get her done. Is trying to, just trying to just get it done. And I'm a get her done kind of guy. I got my playbook, I got my scale book, I got my thing, and I'll do my thing. And so it's interesting because when you interact with a world-class sales organization, or you interact with a company who's trying to become a world-class sales organization, the discussions that those companies have are not tool-based, they're not talent-based. They're very much a buyer centricity focus, an understanding of the buyer reality, understanding of the complexity of buying. I think one of the analysis pieces that was interesting, not the actual data, but one of the things that we realized is, wait a minute, if you can't find people who are capable of selling AI products, how are we able to find buyers who are capable of analyzing AI products? So if we have a skill gap on the one side, we have a skill gap on the buyer side. And we do, because if we look at the SMB reports, the SMB reports are expressing the same talent gap. So if I can't analyze AI tools properly, does that mean I end up buying the wrong tools or not making a decision because I don't, once again, coming back to the capability, I don't have the capability to buy. We have a 90+% failure rate or disappointment rate. Gartner says we're in the trough of disillusionment for all of this year for AI. So that's the case. Am I confident to go buy the next piece of AI? Because I've sucked wind on the last few purchases.
Yeah.
So we're not capable of buying or deploying. So this talent gap issue really keeps circling around. And it's a big one. And so that's the challenge. Is it's not that the tool can't get the job done. It's that we're not ready to think in an AI first world where the work just gets different. And we are full of a lot of people that made some serious money during the ZERP years. And they got a lot of validity about their playbooks and their go-to-market strategies, and they were like just freaking awesome. They're just freaking awesome. They did amazing stuff, which may or may not be absolutely irrelevant to the moment they're in now. I said this to a colleague, and I've kind of repeated a lot. If for people who have heard me say it, you're going to get bored of it. I think there's a lot of us that are really good at what we used to do. And the problem about being really good about what we used to do is that that's how we get our confidence. It's where we have our experience, where we have what I bring to the table is what I'm really good at, but it's what I used to do. But AI expects me to have new competencies that may or may not be relevant to the moment I'm in. And so it's kind of irrelevant if I'm really good at what I used to do, because the key is it used to be. Now I need to be really good about what I'm doing now. And that's where I think, once again, I think key leaders that I run into are having that kind of discussion. When we ask them, you got to understand, this is an undergraduate student talking to an executive. This is like, it's like a therapy moment on a couch. And they're telling this kid, hey, I'm kind of having some issues with the following things. And what they're all expressing is, I'm being crushed. If there's actually three or four major forces coming in to sales leaders right now. Economic uncertainty has been around for the last 2 years to 3 years, so it's been consistent. The talent issue is consistent. The push by leadership to deploy AI, and then we come over here and we have the talent problem. We have a talent retention problem. We have a talent attraction problem. So that's the nutshell. That's the crucible of a sales leaders today. That's the forces pushing in from all sides. And so that comes out in these long form interviews. Those four crucibles are crushing leaders, and they're struggling. And the way out of it is capability. You build capability. You move away from what you think you should be training, and you move to what are the capabilities to harness what we need to be doing, not what we've done.
Yeah. How do you see the successful sales leaders developing those capabilities?
Well, I think the first thing is they don't really need a lot of salespeople. You look at Cursor, how many salespeople did they have? Right? You look at OpenAI and you look at some of these things like Anthropic, and how many they have salespeople. They don't have many. They bring humans in the loop when humans need the loop. So they're not talking to me because they don't, right? They don't need collegiate hires per se. So I think it was interesting. I had a call from an executive over the summer, and it was very, very much, yeah, I got to talk to you right away. And she's moving to this level, late level startup. And she said, I'm just going to do everything different. And I'm going to go back to SDRs, but they're going to be super SDRs. And she hired a go-to-market engineer, and she's really doubling down on building the capability before, and then she has to change who she's going to hire on the AE and the SDR side, because a lot of the work that an AE and SDR thinks they need to do is going to be done with the assistance of AI and the go-to-market engineer. So it's going to be strategically giving them what they need. Once again, what we find when we deploy students who have these capabilities, they outperform, ridiculously outperform. So I don't know that I'm seeing an org per se that's deploying this phenomenally well. Like I said, Spectrum is probably one, and then we do work with Adobe a little bit as well, but Gartner for sure. Gartner is doing some interesting things as well internally. This isn't the sales and marketing practice of Gartner. It's actually the people who sell you all the services from Gartner. So they're doing some interesting things as well.
What would you say is the one shift that sales leaders need to have to make this transition? What shift in the mindset?
Well, I think first thing is awareness. If you still believe that the go-to-market playbooks of pre-2022 or even 24 are going to be active in 26, I think that's the first challenge, is you've got to build that awareness. And then I really do think that this building of capability is a multidimensional reality. So it's really looking at and saying, hey, if efficacy of effort, so outbound and the communication levels are really devalued by the buyer, then I probably need to increase the capacity of my systems, my tools, and my people, so that when they get the rare moment to be with a buyer, they connect and they build trust quickly, because they can so quickly erode trust with the AI tools that are being deployed. When I say AI slop that's been thrown to me, I don't build trust, I break it. And so really it's that, how do I get everybody to the point where they have the new capabilities, the new competencies? For those, go look at the Gartner CSO keynote. It's very, very fascinating. And they're wordsmithing some things, but I think there's a there where the top performers are doing several things, not just one. They're able to analyze information at a much faster pace and make it relevant to the customer. They of course are going to do the things they need to do, right? They're going to do the work, the efforts there, the activities there. But the other thing is they're harnessing AI. And it's more than saying, I'm going to get AI to do my job. It's that I'm going to use AI as my teammate, and I'm going to engage with tools that enhance the human moment I'm going to get into. So I build my knowledge and I build my capacity to use AI not as the person that answers, but I use AI to give me the coaching to better understand my buyer. There's a paper that I've worked on. I presented at conferences a couple of years ago, and it's this reality that when we coach, most coaching models are designed off of either the framework of the training or the framework of the manager in charge of the enablement person or the leader. So most leaders in sales are going to be Ds, right? They're going to be introvert or extroverted, aggressive. And so we actually just took a look at it and said, hey, we did a study and said, if you, and we used AI to generate the corporas. And so each corpus was given a personality, and we gave the buyers. So we created buyer corpora, and each buyer corpus was at a moment. So I'm just trying to learn what my problem is, or I'm trying to find a solution. So we gave them a moment, and then we gave them a personality. And then what we did is we said, all right, now let's go back to the sales leader, right? The type D personality. And then we said, give feedback. So score a transcript and on 6 different dimensions, and then give feedback. So the type D said, oh, you're freaking awesome, dude. You're just freaking awesome. Yeah. So they gave him like an 8, right? The second you move over to the I and the I and the I and the C, the I and the C, well, yeah, you're a 6.5. You really didn't listen to the customer. You kind of you were a bit too aggressive. We moved it to the buyer personas. This is amazing, Odun. When we looked at the buyer personas, there was a 70% miss. What's amazing is that Gartner says about 60 to 70% of buyers say they would prefer a rep-free experience. Why? Because they're being coached. That seller is being coached by a D dominant to be dominant to the buyer. Mm-hmm. And so when even in your coaching model, right, you've got this, if you're not careful, you're giving them feedback from the seller's perspective. But yet the buyer is in a different moment. So this buyer centricity, now we could do that. We in this project, we went through and we created the personas and said, react like a buyer. This person just tried to talk to you. What would you have told them to do if you were in this state as a buyer? There's some great work out by Scott Gillum just released a great book called The Hidden Buyer Journey. And this is stuff we've been teaching at UTD since he first conceptualized it. And really this ability to understand and adapt to the reality that there are multiple buyers with multiple personalities. And so when you then coach that salesperson, hey, as a D, this is what I do. And by the way, this is what the AI should tell you to do because I'm a D. Mm-hmm. That only matches 70% of the time, and that 70% of the time is when they're in vendor selection. But if they're in any of the other modes, you're off. In fact, what they do is they just ghost you. So we're outside. We're definitely outside the report. We're a lot of stuff we work on. I'm doing.
Absolutely. No, incredible insights. I think like even for us, I'm thinking about how we, train differently, think differently about buyer engagement. So
I'll have to send you that paper.
Yeah.
It's getting ready to be reviewed. So
Yeah.
as long as you don't circulate, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, sure. We can dive into that on another session as well. So final question, and then we just wrap this up. I think people can, if you have any questions and you're on the call, you can just drop that in the chat. And then we'll take that after this one. So, final question. I think you've shared a lot of great insights. Where does trust fit into all of this? What's the trap leaders fall into when it comes to AI and then building trust with all the relevant stakeholders?
Well, I think a lot of us, I don't know if you've ever gone to a social gathering and you meet the fluffy surface person, right? At first, you feel pretty good, right? They come up to you and they say hi, and they give you some accolade, right? Hey, nice haircut. Hey, I love your outfit. Whatever it is they're doing, right? And if you haven't been witnessing that before, you're like, well, that's very nice. Oh, thanks. I feel pretty good about that. But then if you see them go do that to everybody else in the party, you go, oh, it just devalues. You're going, oh, yeah. I was such a sucker thinking that they were being relevant to me. So I think we're in a world where we can be relevant to people. People have, in business to business selling, people have a serious problem we can help them with. If we can understand that problem, the challenge that we have is we want to be able to have a real discussion with them about what we feel we're solving. And that's what we're trying to earn. And so being relevant in the outreach is possible. Being relevant in the discovery is possible. Being relevant in the journey, once we get into the pipeline and they're in that really complex decision process, being relevant again is possible. But it probably isn't what we've always done, because it's different for every buyer. So instead of scaling up a playbook, what we need to scale up is the capacity of our people to be able to take the information from the AI tools, various AI tools that say, let's look at the buying committee. This is Scott Gillam's work. Let me look at the buying committee. You're probably experiencing internal turmoil that the person you're talking to is going up against these critiques with people you're not aware of. So if you call them back and go, hey, are we ready to go? I'll reduce the price, and bada bing, bada boom, right? Let's go out to another game. Let's go to a football game. Let's go to a baseball game. Let's go do this. Let's go to lunch. Let's go golfing. Let's go. And they're going, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I'm getting just creamed by this really aggressive skeptic who's just killing me on questions I don't know how to answer. And you want to take me to golf. You don't have relevancy. You don't have my trust. But if you contact them and say, hey, now that you're going to go represent this to other people, you're going to experience friction. And especially if I've mapped out your buying team, then I know, oh, wow, you're going to come up against some things, and I need to get you prepared. I need to get content prepared. I don't need to keep checking in. I need to understand what you're up against, and I need to be a trusted, relevant advisor through this buyer's journey. And if you can do that, you're phenomenally more successful. So that's just, it's getting into Scott's work, but I think once again, I'm going to come back to, it's probably anybody listening is going to go, golly, he talked about his capability, but it's because the talent gap is real. You can't go out and find it. You probably have to build it. So if you're trying to go look for the people who are capable of doing this, maybe colleges are the place to go look, because then you can form them. But you've got to build the capability internally and have a go-to-market strategy / playbook that is about building the modern AI literate capabilities of my people with business acumen and understanding the complexity environment they're in. Because when they walk into something like that and they talk to you, Odun, the first time we talked, right? We were both relevant to each other, weren't we?
Yes.
Didn't we almost develop immediate trust?
Yep, absolutely.
Because you knew what you were talking about, and you were shocked I knew what you were challenged with. And that created immediate. We still haven't met face to face.
Yeah.
In fact, the amount of time we've spent together is probably less than, let's say, 2 hours. Is that fair?
Yeah.
But I think there's trust because we were relevant to each other about where we stood and what we needed to accomplish. And so that's the modern trust. The AI slop that we're going to throw at somebody doesn't build trust. It actually builds, oh, you just got that from AI. And so that's where we got to build people, and then we build systems. And if we have the right people, those systems are going to allow us to do so much more. And it's not about doing more, it's about doing things efficiently and effectively. Let's get rid of the waste in the field. Let's build skills. There's so many really cool opportunities in our space right now. And so I think people just need to harness the reality that everybody's dealing with the talent gap. Everybody's dealing with the economic uncertainty. Everybody's dealing with the AI push from executive leadership. And everybody is feeling the pressure on finances. So when you look at all that together, you've got to be careful that you aren't just doing what you've always done, or to be really good at what you used to do. You've got to get really good at what you need to be doing, and so do your people. And so you got to sit down with your enablement people and say, hey, we've got a different mandate here than just onboarding and developing collateral. And we got to make sure that our people have the capability of harnessing everything we're doing, not just being able to pray and spray from the AI slop cannon.
Fantastic. This was incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for sharing, your wisdom on this session. I would definitely love to have you back again. And once the report is out, I believe we'll circulate that as well with our audience. Probably have a follow-up, session. I'm sure there's a lot more to unpack. But man, thank you so much for making time.
You bet.
And looking forward to doing another one soon.
All right. Thank you, Odun, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining.